Hello everybody, it's Tommy and welcome back to another speed build for the Disney save. Sorry for my little break. It has been quite a bit of time since I have last uploaded, and even the videos that I have been uploading recently have been pre-recorded, so it's been a little bit of time for me, but I did need a break so that I could take care of a few things. We did just finish Evergreen Harbor, which means that I had a lot of testing to do, and if you are an owner of The Sims 4 Eco Lifestyle, you know that that is a particularly buggy pack with lots of weird little additions to the game and lots of strange game mechanics that made it particularly difficult to test and try to get working correctly and just make sure that everything is flowing okay. So I had to take some time to test Evergreen Harbor, kind of plan out the next world, which is obviously what we are going to be starting today, talk with my patrons about what they would like to see, and it's just a lot of work. I've got some personal stuff going on. I'm actually in a move. I'm doing 2 collabs for Halloween, so that'll be some stuff that you guys will see later on in the month, and those aren't even a part of the save file, so hopefully you guys are going to enjoy some extra content. But I'm really excited to say that we are going to be starting the new world. I'm finally ready to move on, and today's speed build is the very first one. So obviously we are in Forgotten Hollow. This is the world that comes with the Sims 4 Vampires game pack, and it's a very small world. It's only 5 lots actually, and they're all generally the same exact size. I do, as per like a rule of the save file, I tried to bring in game mechanics for the particular world that I'm building in. So for Willow Creek, that is a base game world. We obviously had like the addition of a lot of things for that one. So there wasn't necessarily anything in particular I needed to include for that world. But then we had Evergreen Harbor, where you have a lot of new jobs. You have the new eco footprint system, you have the voting system, so those types of things, I try to make sure that they are available in the save file and working well with my Disney save characters and speed builds so that you can play the game and actually use the characters in a setting that works for the game, and you have like everything you need to play basically any type of character, any type of household, any game pack or expansion pack that you would like to. So for Forgotten Hollow, obviously that means vampires, so we will have some vampires coming in the next few speed builds and creative sims. I'm really excited. I've chosen some, well, me and my patrons have chosen some particular characters to become vampires. In Disney movies, vampires aren't really a thing. There's a couple of references that I'm going to be able to pull out from some different Disney movies, but there isn't like a particular well-known Disney vampire. So we're going to be taking some creative liberties for sure. But today we are starting with Cruella Deville's home. She is actually our first resident of Forgotten Hollow, and this is Vil Manor, otherwise known as Hell Hall or Hell Hill, depending on the rendition. This is a version from the 101 Dalmatians animated version, not the live action, and not any of the other versions of Cruella that you have seen or this house that you may have seen. Basically, I had a few references that I could use for this and very, very distanced dark shots to kind of decipher on my own, and I definitely took some creative liberties as well with the exterior and the interior. I did read up on Disney Wiki about like what this house was, when it was built, you know, like the general information around it, and tried to tie in as many things as possible. And as usual, I went through all of the 101 Dalmatians scenes that include the interior and exterior of this house. So I did try my absolute best. But I will say that this particular home, I did have to basically, when it came to the exterior, I had to do a lot of what I felt like would be correct, just because some of the movie screenshots were really low quality and just dark, and it's really hard to tell what I'm looking at a lot of the times. There's one particular shot of the entire house that's from quite a distance away, and you really can't tell what the back part of the house looks like. It's very, very dark and hard to see. So I basically had to do what I felt like was correct. And one of the things that Disney Wiki had talked a lot about was that this house at one point was designed to be a castle. So the original creator of the Deville Manor wanted it to be a castle, and in the creative process of like kind of building the home, they went mad and never totally got to the point of being a castle. So it is a little bit of a hybrid, and you will notice some like castle-ish aesthetics, which means it's going to fit really, really well into this world, because yes, we are going to be doing a castle here. I think we are actually going to be doing a few castles. So other than doing this speed build today, and obviously there is a lot to say about the Deville Manor, and I will get a little bit more into it later on in the video, I have a few announcements I want to make and just some general stuff that I want to talk about while I have the opportunity to do so in a little bit of a longer speed build. This is our first speed build of Forgotten Hollow, and I obviously only have 5 lots in Forgotten Hollow. So something that was originally brought to the table by one of my patrons was the idea of potentially doing more than 5 speed builds and offering people choices so that you could download extra lots off of the gallery from different movies and characters that might not have made it into this world otherwise. And that kind of brought up the idea of doing 2 versions of Forgotten Hollow. So even though there are only 5 lots, I'm actually going to be doing around 10 speed builds, and that's going to create 2 different versions of Forgotten Hollow. So when you download the save file, it's going to come with the first version, and that is the version that I am currently going to be working on for the next 5 speed builds. The theme is villains, so it will generally be villains and villain movies. Obviously, there's certain villains that are not going to fit here and don't make a lot of sense to put here. So Cruella is one that could have potentially fit in the cats and dogs world, but her house aesthetically just works really, really well here and looks very much like something that you would see from the Vampires pack. So I felt like this was a good opportunity to do her house here. But villains like Ursula and Captain Hook, they will definitely be included in the save file, but they will be in a different location, probably Sulani for those particular characters. So don't get scared or worried if over the next 5 videos I don't include your favorite villain, because it's likely that they're just going to go somewhere else. I want to include as many of them as possible and be able to do like really cool lots themed around them. So in order to be able to do so, we do have to spread them out a little bit. But as far as like generic villain characters go, there's quite a bit of stuff that we can do here. So we will have a lot of characters coming, a lot of townies, and then our 5 main speed builds, which will be version 1. And then I'm going to do version 2 of Forgotten Hollow, and I will tell you guys right now that version 2 is Nightmare Before Christmas themed. So think Tim Burton, think all of his Disney movies, and Nightmare Before Christmas lots and characters, and just very, very much centered around that particular movie. So if you are a huge Nightmare Before Christmas fan, all of those builds will be available on the gallery, and you can easily download the save file and just replace all of the characters and the townies and kind of swap everything out for what you feel like fits best per your like Disney aesthetic or some of your favorite movies. But if you want to, you can obviously just keep the original lots and you can play with the villains characters and all of that. So basically, I want the opportunity to offer you guys choices and be able to include some characters that might have been cut from the save file otherwise. And also, I just feel like it's going to be really, really cool to be able to theme this world where it's so small and there's just so much I could do with it in 2 different directions. So we'll have like the castle-y original Disney villain aesthetic, and then we'll have more of that like whimsical Tim Burton, really fantasy element for version 2 of the world. And that's going to take up most of October for me, probably cut into November if I know myself well. And also, like I told you guys, I am moving literally on Halloween. I am moving that day. So it's going to be a really, really busy month for me, and I'm already behind as per usual. So I hope I explained that really well, but I will talk about it more in future videos. If you guys have any questions, feel free to leave them down below so that I can hopefully answer them to the best of my ability. But that's the plan. We're going to be doing quite a few speed builds. We're going to be including a lot of content. Essentially, if a character is not in version 2, you can just use them as a townie, so you can just kind of flop the characters around, or potentially move them somewhere else later on in the save file if you felt like there would be a really good place to move them into, or maybe just like move a couple of households together. The point is to make as many choices as possible so that everybody can have the characters that they want and have the type of gameplay that they want to. Which brings me to my next announcement. And that is that the next speed build that comes out is actually not going to be for Forgotten Hollow. We will get back to Forgotten Hollow as soon as possible. The next video will actually be a create-a-sim of Cruella, Deville, and her 2 henchmen, and then I will start the next speed build that is right across the way, which I'm not going to tell you guys what it is, but I'm excited, of course, to start that one as well. And it is actually going to be a bonus speed build for Evergreen Harbor. So part of this, like, maybe offering a few choices idea includes potentially adding a few more lots for some of the other worlds as replacements. So one of the households when I was testing Evergreen Harbor that quickly became not an issue, but I realized that if you wanted to play the house correctly, you were going to outgrow the house pretty quickly, and that is the Davis family home. So the way that I designed the home was that Molly and Andy shared a room, and that is correct per the movie. But basically, as your Sims get older, if you were going to use that household for parenthood, it's not really going to work out very well because they're going to want their own spaces pretty quickly. So I decided that we would do their home from Toy Story 2, 3, and 4. And that's part of like the major conflict of Toy Story as well, is that they're obviously moving and kind of outgrowing that home. So what I did is I made a speed build of that house from Toy Story 2, 3, and 4. And it fits perfectly on the same lot that we originally built the Davis family home. So it's a lot replacement. The original Disney save will come with the very first home, and as your Sims start to age, if you want the version 2 of that house, it'll be available on my gallery for you to download. And it's a really simple home. We don't have a lot of interior shots of that place. I basically had to do, again, what I felt like was correct, but the outside looks very much like what you'll see from the movie and some of the games and all of that. So that'll be the next speed build. I will talk more about that in that video, but I wanted to put this one out first so that I could kind of explain to you guys what I'm going to be doing. And this isn't a definite thing all the time. We might do entire worlds that never have any lot replacements. Forgotten Hollow might be like a really cool exception where there's just like 2 versions of it. Although I will say Magnolia Promenade is 4 lots, and I can already kind of picture maybe doing a few more there. So we might have a few versions of Magnolia Promenade, that kind of stuff. But obviously the point is to offer you guys choice, and I think that it's a really cool concept. So we're going to be doing that as much as I feasibly can and still like obviously move forward. So yeah, that's the plan for Forgotten Hollow. We're going to be doing version 1 and 2. I'm really excited. I hope you guys like that. Let me know what you think of the concept down below in the comment section. I definitely want to hear your input and your ideas. Also, let me know if there's any lots in the Disney save so far that you're familiar with that you feel like could potentially need an upgrade at one point, and then maybe it'll kind of get my head flowing as far as doing future lot replacements for worlds that I've already completed. But let's get back into today's speed build a little bit and talk about Deville Manor. So Deville Manor is huge, first of all. I couldn't believe how many rooms it had in it. It's a huge lot, and I thought that I was only going to be taking up like a small portion of it. Maybe I'd do like a garden or a cemetery to the left or to the right, but I ended up using the whole lot, which is not a good sign for some of the things that I have planned in the future for this world, but I will make it work as I typically do. And like I said, I do think of this place as sort of a hybrid between a castle and a manor. It's a little bit big, but at the same time, there aren't a lot of bedrooms. A lot of the rooms are libraries and conservatories and dining halls and stuff like that. Obviously, I can't include the furnishing of every single portion of this house. It is massive, and the video would just be so long. It's already a long video as it is. I don't love putting out videos that are over 25 minutes long. It's not my favorite thing to do because people do not like them. However, I do want to include things that I think are important. So for Cruella, we do get some shots of the inside of her home. There was actually a floor plan available to me from a game where you play as the dogs and you have to escape from like the library, and you go throughout her whole manor, like trying to leave the manor basically. So there was a floor plan available, and that is so rare. I cannot even tell you, when I first saw the floor plan on Disney Wiki, I was so excited to have the opportunity to really just get into the details and copy a floor plan, because that means that I cannot go wrong. However, I did already build like a version 1 of this place, and with the floor plan, it did not match the exterior enough for me to be really happy with it. And to me, that's more important, is that you can recognize the building from the outside, especially because I feel like that's what a lot of you will see. Like, you'll see the exterior of the building and you'll really recognize it right away, hopefully. And if I follow the floor plan and it really doesn't fit the layout of the exterior, it's not going to make any sense. It doesn't translate well. So instead, this build ended up being a hybrid between the floor plan that was available to me and some shots of the exterior, some from the game, and a little bit of what I felt like I needed to do to make the build function really well in The Sims 4, which means moving some of the rooms around, like the room that we are currently decorating. In the movie, this is actually the library and the room where most of the dogs are being kept. However, I had to change it into the kitchen because it leads into the dining room and it makes more sense for the two of those to be right next to one another. And then the library had to get moved over to the far left. These are the things that we sometimes have to change in order to make everything work really well in The Sims 4. But I love how this place turned out, and I tried to keep as much of the original design as I possibly could. One of the things that was very apparent in the movie is the fact that the Vil Manor is super abandoned and not very well kept. In the movie, she kind of comes and goes from the place. It appears to me that she might like own the property, but she doesn't use it as like her main establishment. Her henchmen are definitely like living there, but a lot of the time she would just kind of pop in and then leave the scene. And we know that she lives here because of the game, or that she did at one point, but it's not very well kept. It had tons of cobwebs. It was cracked, dirty. All of the furniture was covered in like those furniture covers and like the blanket kind of thin white fabrics. A lot of the furniture from Spooky Stuff is actually going to be used in here because it has that same general aesthetic. And then there was like the giant knights of armor that were right on the entranceway, and generally very, very dark. However, you could see that a lot of the furniture was purple. And obviously when you think of Cruella, you think of black, white, spots, anything with fur and red. So that is what I decided to go with for the interior. And it actually came out really nice, like maybe just a little bit too nice per the movie. But you do have to think about the fact that she's going to actually live here. So I tried to meet it in the middle as far as what we're going to do between like dirty, cobwebby, and like a livable home that we're going to have multiple characters inside of. So think of this as Cruella Deville's manor, but maybe she hired somebody once to come in and clean the place up, and now it's slowly kind of going back into disrepair. I did go in at the very, very end of the speed build. I actually did cut this portion from the video, but I did go in at the end and kind of deck the place out in the decals from Vampire Stuff. So that is a lot of like the cracks in the wall, the broken paneling, the cobwebs, the cracks in the floor, especially in like the brick flooring and all of that, just to dirty the place up a bit and make it sort of a little bit dark and inhabitable. And when it comes to gameplay, I'll probably turn some of the lights off in this place because obviously it's very well lit in here. And again, that's just another game mechanic that I don't really have a lot of control over, especially for a speed build. You can't like auto turn lights off in build mode, so although it would be like particularly dark in the movie, when I'm building, that's just not something that I can really match. So we have a lot of the lights. We'll shut them off. We'll make it a little bit darker in here. And some of the rooms definitely look like they are more abandoned and don't get used very often. The bottom floor overall is a kitchen, dining, library, living room, and I think a couple of like general entryway points to the front and back. Then there is actually a downstairs. So the downstairs in the floor plan was labeled as something else. However, I felt like this would be a cool opportunity to do her studio. So again, one of my patrons had brought up the idea of creating like a fashion studio for Cruella. We know from the live action movie that she is interested in fashion. She's like a designer, and obviously she has like an interest in furs and clothing design, and she's like this high fashion character. So it makes a lot of sense for the Disney save to make her in the fashion career and give her like her own little space where she could design clothing. So that is the downstairs room. I basically put all of the stuff that you will need for like the fashion career down here, as well as a lot of the new stuff from Nifty Knitting. And then we had the really cool mannequins, which at the end of the video, we are going to go in and dress some of them. They're basically all wearing arrays of black, white, and red clothing, but I did try to integrate like furs and any outfit from The Sims 4 that comes with like any kind of fur. It would be so nice if we had like her huge jacket, and that's definitely going to be an issue when it comes to making her in Create Sim. I've already kind of crossed that bridge, and it's going to stink that we don't have like her big white fur coat that she wears over everything, or like a version of it that has spots on it or something like that. I'll have to go through the catalog again and double check, but I really don't think we have anything particularly like that. Nevertheless, we'll make it work, but I did try to find some clothing that not only I thought Cruella would wear herself, but I could definitely see her designing. Some of it's a little bit maybe more modern than the actual original animated movie, but that's okay. I think that it definitely still works here. And then we are going to have a pretty large cut and move to the upstairs. So obviously for the purposes of doing this speed build and just keeping it a little bit shorter, I generally don't like to include like hallway decor, bathrooms, rooms that are repeating. So if we have multiple libraries or multiple dining rooms in the same lot, there's really no reason for me to show you guys me decorating them again, especially if I'm going to be using basically the same furniture over and over again. And that's very much the case when it comes to this house. I thought of this the same way that I thought of Charlotte LaBeouf's mansion, and just how mansions generally have like an overall furniture package that you will see repeating throughout all of the rooms. That's not always the case, but I definitely like to repeat furniture in these larger like castle, mansion, manor type of homes, versus if we're going to do a residential, we really do every room kind of its own thing, and it's going to have like all sorts of furniture throughout the home for like a traditional family home. But for these kinds of builds, I feel like we can get away with a lot more just repeating furniture, so there's really just no reason for me to show you guys every single room. However, this will be available in the gallery very, very soon, so if you're interested, you can download it and go and check it out a little bit early before you get the save file, which will be quite a while anyway. But there were a couple of rooms upstairs that I did want to show you guys. So the upstairs contains the master bedroom, a second kind of piano library room tower that leads up to another kind of abandoned living room. There is a bar up here and a second dining room, and then we have another bedroom that is for the two henchmen, which is the room that we are currently decorating. It's supposed to be this really shabby, beat up, bad furniture, nothing kind of makes sense, mattresses on the floor. Cruella, in my eyes, wouldn't really care about like making sure that her guests had a bunch of nice beds to sleep in and all of that. In the original floor plan, that room was labeled as Cruella's childhood bedroom. So I imagine that she kind of cleared it out and threw a bunch of mattresses in there and had somebody move like some makeshift furnitures and wardrobes in there for her two henchmen to be able to live with her, just for convenience factor and nothing else. And so it's very minimalistic in there, but I thought it would be a very unique experience compared to a lot of the other bedrooms, especially in this particular mansion where a lot of it is very nicely decorated. Even if a lot of it ends up being like dirty and run down, it's still nicely decorated, particularly Cruella's bedroom. So the master bedroom has its own bathroom, and it is the entryway to the tower that you guys saw on the far left of the speed build when we first started the video. That has its own staircase. It goes all the way up to the top to like a private living room, or just like a private party room. If you were going to have guests over, that would be a really cool space to do like a little gathering. And it has its own library, its own piano, so it's really like the entire left section of the house. And again, we're bringing the idea that she's very much into fur, fashion, shoes, clothes. So some of that nicer furniture from Get Famous that has a lot of the exposed clothing, and it's basically a reskin of like the clothing racks from Moschino stuff. And I think there's another one that comes with Get Famous that's more of like you're coming onto set and you've got a whole bunch of different clothing on racks, which is what I use downstairs and you would probably see in like an actual fashion studio. But for her room, she might want to display like some of her favorite pieces and shoes and stuff like that. And I did use that rug a lot There's one rug that comes from My First Pet Stuff, I believe, and it's a white rug with black speckles all over it. I, in particular, really like that rug. I tend to use it a lot. I used it in Woody's room and Jesse's room when I did both of their apartment renos, because to me, it was the closest we had to like a cow print. But now in here, it just works even better. It's even closer to like a Dalmatian type of look than like cow, I would say. So we had to use it pretty much as I could feel like I could actually work out. There's a lot of different rugs in this place. I broke my like rug rule, which is that I don't like to use more than like 2 rugs per house, and I'll just like repeat the rugs over and over again. But if you use a ton of different rugs and colors, to me it starts to look a little bit crazy. I have that rule with windows as well. I'll pick like 2 windows and you're only allowed to use those 2 windows, and I believe I broke that rule for this speed build as well. But it works. It was one of those instances where I felt like it was more important to maybe do something like that instead of stick to my own building rules when it comes to just doing things that are of my own creation. Those are like little guidelines that I have for myself that I like to stick to. I did include a little bit of the bottom part of the tower that leads off of her bedroom. So originally this was going to be like a walk-in closet, but she has her studio downstairs. I fit a lot of the Get Famous furniture that I wanted to use in sort of the walk-in closet area. And I felt like it was more appropriate that maybe she would have like a piano and some different drapery, some mirrors, kind of like a loungy area. And there is one scene in the movie that includes a piano in the background, and I had that written down in my notes as something to include in the speed build, and then realized up until this point that I hadn't put it anywhere. It really didn't fit in the dining room, and it didn't fit in the living room section, so it ended up going in here, and it's like its own little private point of the house, which is really cool compared to a lot of the rest of the speed build. But that is basically going to be it for today. We are coming down to the end of the video. I really hope you guys enjoyed the first speed build of Forgotten Hollow. I will be putting out a tour video of Evergreen Harbor. I actually just passed along Evergreen Harbor to some patrons to do some beta testing, and once they help me work out all of the bugs with Evergreen Harbor there, I will be able to record my video and put it out. So that'll be coming soon. I know a lot of you are looking forward to that. I definitely will be doing it. Just give me a little bit more time, and then we will go back to Evergreen Harbor for our bonus video, and then we are going to be moving forward with the rest of Forgotten Hollow. Let me know what you thought of today's speed build in the comments section down below. If you would like to support the Disney Save on Patreon, you can do so by hitting the link in my description box down below, or the link at the end of the video. Thank you guys all so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more. Hit that little bell icon below to turn on post notifications so you can get updated every single time I post, and I will talk to you all in the next one.